Oh, hey, welcome to our third annual game room tour. That's right, this is the 2021 game room tour. We post one every January 1st, and I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about it because all year long, I use the upcoming game room tour as a upcoming road mark or a thing around which to set goals, right? I know I have until January 1st to make these big changes to my game room. And I'm very excited today to show you the changes that I have made in the last year to this game room. It's gonna be fun to kind of put the old game room beside this game room, make a little comparison, and see how far we've come. Stick around, because we're gonna look at a lot of video games, we're gonna look at a lot of toys. It's gonna be fun. We are going to break this game room tour into two parts. That's right, two parts. You know we got a lot of video games, but we've also got a lot of toys, but we don't really call this the toy room tour, do we? We call it the game room tour. So let's start with the video games, and then we'll move on to the toys. We've got a lot of toys to show you. Seriously, it's kind of gotten out of hand, but video games first. I am almost at 3,000 video games here in this game room. It's almost a little bit unfortunate that I couldn't quite get there before this video was made. And honestly, I might actually be there, but not have scanned quite the last bit of my games into my collector's app. But we'll see, we'll talk about it. But for all intents and purposes, there's about 3,000 video games here. So let's start here, my first shelf. All this up top here is PlayStation 1. And it's probably one of my favorite consoles to collect for. All of the stuff that I love, Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, that stuff you'll see on our toy shelves here in a minute. I've worked really hard to get all those games on PlayStation 1, and I play all of them. It's one of my biggest passions. But PlayStation 1 up top, PSP. I collect not only PSP games, but also PSP UMD, which is kind of tucked elsewhere. But all the games are right there, and all of the UMD are there. But I've also got a couple shelves of the UMD tucked behind like other rows of PlayStation games, because I've just got so many. I've got so many PSP UMD. But moving on down, here is my PlayStation 2 shelf, and it spills over to here too. But I basically started with all of my greatest hits, right? So they're just kind of all there. I've almost got like 100 or so greatest hits editions. Not really a huge portion of all the ones that there are, but I do keep them separate because it's kind of nice to see that red shelf full of PlayStation 2 games. But the rest of that is all PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 2 is my biggest collection by pretty far. There's a lot of PlayStation 2 there. But like I said, the PlayStation 2 spills over to there. But up top here are all my inbox Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and then DS, 3DS games. I just keep them all tucked up there. Not a huge collection. I have way more loose Game Boy games than I do in-box ones, obviously, but they're just tucked away. They don't really display well unless you build a custom display for them, which I've long thought about, but it's not really quite that important to me because I would rather spend my time searching down the rest of the box, the rest of those games in box is really what I would rather do. So I don't display my loose ones, but there's a lot more loose Game Boy games tucked away. On down here, here's my PS3 collection, and then PS4 is below that. PS4, as you can see, is pretty small, but honestly, I play Grand Theft Auto on PS4, and that's almost all. You're gonna see a theme as we continue on down here. The tops of my shelves are very immaculate. They look very good. And then as we get to the bottom of my shelves, you're gonna find that's not so much the case. Here are some of my consoles. These are almost all like spare consoles. Most of the consoles that I play on regularly are back in our other room where we actually stream from and do all of our videos for our other channel where we actually play a lot of video games and board games on. They're all plugged up back there ready to use, but this is like some of my other more collectible stuff and, you know, some turbo graphics and stuff down there that I don't have plugged up. And then, honestly, one of the more important shelves in this whole game room is this bottom one. And you're gonna see it looks like an absolute wreck, right? Well, what that is where I put games whenever we bring them home at first. Before they get scanned into my app, and I take notes on them and then put them on the shelves wherever they go down there. And whenever I put them down there, they just kind of pile up for a couple weeks, and then once about every 2 weeks, I sit down and I scan them into my collector's app. I use CLZ Games, and I take pictures of a lot of my games that are in my collector's app. Not all of them, but a lot of them. If there's damage, anything really to note, I take a picture of it and put them in my app. So it's very important for me to pick a space in my game room to just sort of tuck things away and give me time later to work on them. And that's exactly what that bottom shelf is. It's my hidey hole. All right, let's move on. This is getting into some of the good stuff here. I keep all of my NES, and then my Super Nintendo's tucked back there, and then my N64. None of these are particularly large collections for me. And we'll get to some more that I have in box that are kind of stored elsewhere right now. But I'm not like super passionate about collecting that stuff unless it's, you know, the stuff I really want to play and I get it in box. We've been making a series on the channel lately where we go trade in like musical instruments and other things from the thrift for really nice games at a buy sell trade store. And on those videos I've been buying a lot of in-box Sega and Super Nintendo and NES, just all of that stuff, all the cartridge stuff. I've been buying it in box a lot more lately. So the loose stuff is just up here out of my way, and honestly it's kind of unfortunate, but that's what these top shelves have been for me lately. They have been my out of the way stuff. It's kind of bad, but it's useful because most of the time that you're shooting a video, you're just kind of shooting yourself dead on, and that stuff's not really the focus anyways. And that's a huge part of this room, is that it is our background. It's what's behind us when we shoot a lot of these videos. So that's that stuff kind of just tucked up there out of the way. Anything that I play regularly is probably not up there. It's either in box or it's in my other room. Like, let's be honest, Super Nintendo is really just a Mario machine for me. So Super Mario is in my NES Mini. My Super Nintendo Mini is in the back room. So there's that. On down to the Xbox. There's a lot of Xbox packed in there. There's Xbox 360. This is another unfortunate bottom row addition here, but this is my almost entire Game Gear collection, as well as my entire loose Game Boy cartridge section. Just tossed away for now, because there's no good way to display them that's going to work for my game room right now. And then that starts my collection of gaming manuals and gaming magazines, and it goes on forever, but my whole bottom row all around my game room are my books and magazines, and that's because they're so heavy that they make the shelves bow if you put them any taller. So I've just made my bottom row for most of the rest of the game room my heavy books and magazines. I'm a pretty passionate magazine collector. I have just about half of the collection of Game Informer magazine. I have nowhere near that much of the Nintendo Power magazine set, but I am actively collecting it when I find it at thrift stores, which is another huge important thing to note about this game room tour and this channel. 99% of what you're seeing here is from the thrift. We are thrifters. That is what our channel is. If you're new to this channel, you're gonna wanna stick around, because this is all brought home on our thrift adventures, and I'm very proud of that fact. But let's keep moving here on to, but again, my top shelves, bottom shelves are just for things kind of get tucked away. So my loose cartridges for all things Atari, and some of my loose Sega Genesis is up here too, Master System, just all that stuff, as well as my Switch games, because we don't have many. We don't have many Switch games at all. Just, you know, the Mario stuff, the stuff that I definitely play a lot. Like, just like a Super Nintendo is a Super Mario World machine for me, the Switch is really just a Mario Maker machine for me. It's 99% of what I care about on that system. Our spare Switch is just setting up here, a little 101 Dalmatians action. It's just kind of chilling out up there. And on to Wii U, but probably more hilarious. Zoom in here a bit. What do you see behind the Wii U collection?
Wii Fit?
That's my Wii Fit collection, baby, is what that is. At least half of it. Actually, a couple rows of these Wii games have Wii Fit behind them. If you want to know why, Glorified nonsense, that's why. But yeah, Wii, lots of Wii. I think Wii is my second biggest collection now. There's a lot of Wii games there. And then, of course, more magazine and gaming manual collections down on the bottom. And then our last shelves of games, that is our GameCube collection. Not a huge collection. One of the ones I'm more passionate about collecting, but I only buy most of this stuff at the thrift store. So I am at the whim of what shows up at the thrift store. So we're up to roughly 150 games there, GameCube games. And then my inbox Sega Genesis, every single one of those Genesis games, I am so proud to have found at the thrift store. I think my most valuable game at the moment, if we can find it, I'm gonna look through here and find this bad boy, a copy of Streets of Rage 3, my most valuable game. And I'm very happy to have it. I paid $1 for it. I left this sticker on there just to show you. It actually says 99 cents on it, and that's pretty awesome. But it also kind of coincidentally was found on a dollar day where purple stickers were $1, so it was like $1 no matter what was gonna happen. But straight from the thrift store, man. Very proud of that. That's all the video games. This other shelf has my giant scissors, a very important staple on our channel. We open all of our mail time stuff with said scissors. And some of this stuff's not terribly important. There's a whole mess of Lego minifigures that's down there that, you know what, I hope, I'm not gonna make any promises, but I'm hoping by the time we roll around to our next game room tour, I have those minifigs displayed in a way that makes way more sense. But they're just kind of piled down there right now because they're a lot of work. But that's it for the video game stuff. There is plenty of other stuff tucked around our house and our storage unit that is gaming related that's not currently on display here in the game room. Probably the biggest honorable mention is going to be my controller collection. For every system, I try to get every single color, etc., etc. And on previous game room tours, I've had those on display. But if you have a larger collection like we do of toys and video games and you know, things of that nature, you probably have this same experience where you can only display so much of it. That's very much so a problem for us. So things come and go all the time. I think somewhere in between this game room tour and last year's game room tour, I took down all of my Power Ranger stuff and stored it away and was like, I'm not gonna display this anymore. And then over the course of our thrifting adventures, I started finding way more Power Ranger stuff, and I just got back to where I absolutely just had to. I had to put it back up on display, as you're going to see here in a second. But our controller collection is very much like that. I'm still passionate about it. I have it very neatly all tucked away right now in some bins, and hopefully one of these days when we get a bigger game room, we'll just expand all these yellow shelves and we will put those bad boys back up. But I think the honorable mention behind the controllers is just the sheer number of consoles that I have. They can't all be on display and take up 3 of these shelves. But the video games are, of all the video game stuff, the video games are my biggest passion. I love the form factor of a PlayStation 2 game with its manual. It's just something that I love. I don't know how to explain it to you other than that. It's just art to me. It's just beautiful art. So those video games take precedence over some things like my consoles, etc., etc. But we can take a real quick look at my prized Game Boys here and handhelds before we go. The only 2 of the Play It Loud series that I have, the yellow and the green, found that bad boy at a thrift store. The Goodwill bins, $1.39 per pound, so I paid like pennies for it. One of you guys sent me the yellow one, which makes me speechless. There's not really much to say about that. Yellow's obviously my favorite color, if you haven't figured that out by now. Or I'm sorry if you're somehow colorblind to that color. Not making fun of you, but if you don't know, these shelves are yellow. This is a backlit Game Boy Color that a good buddy of mine gave me. And it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. And it's like my main player. All my Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games played on that bad boy right there. And that's it for video games now. Let's move on to our toys. You're gonna wanna see this. It's kind of nuts. Stick around. Toys, 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 toys. As I said earlier in the video, the toys excite me just as much as the video games. And honestly, if you watch our videos regularly, you might have probably noticed at some point there are plenty of times that the toys excite me more than the video games. I had video games growing up. I played video games, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, which is kind of my favorite. That was really my era, and I played that heavily, and I like to collect that stuff for nostalgia's sake. But I played with way more toys growing up than I did video games. I'd love to know in the comments below if you played one or the other, or both of them equally. How were you with this kind of thing? Because for me, I love video games and I played them plenty, but just toys was me. And so that being said, all of this behind here is some sort of really strange childhood wish for fulfillment, I guess. But let me give you a brief description of what's gonna be on these shelves before I jump into it. It's kind of like every other shelf, every other bookcase is like mine and then Hannah's, and we kind of collect some other stuff together. So I'm gonna kind of point that out as we go. Oh, hey, this is mine. Oh, hey, this is Hannah's. And oh, hey, this is something we kind of do together. Let's jump into it. Hold on tight, because I'm very excited about this. Top shelf here, before we jump into them, is my Dragon Ball Z VHS collection. We don't have any Dragon Ball Z playing today. We've got Pokemon playing on this bad boy right here, and we have Yu-Gi-Oh playing on this. And it just kills me how sharp a DVD can look on a screen that small. It just looks absolutely perfect. So I love keeping these bad boys playing in the background of our videos all the time. It's just, for me, it's one of my favorite accents going on here. But my Dragon Ball Z collection is a really big part of my collection that for the future, I am very, very excited about. Because there's a couple things here on the shelves, and I'll get to another one here in a second, that I want to line this game room with. If we can uncomfortably pan back over here real quick, these top shelves that I have, eventually, I basically want them to be either VHS tape or Furby, and we're gonna get to Furby a lot later. Unfortunately, I could maybe, if I find a thin enough shelf, do both. Do the top row all the way around the game room with Furby, and then the second row with Dragon Ball Z tape. But the Dragon Ball Z tape are such a perfect thing to line this game room with for one very specific reason. And here's the regular part of the spine for the Dragon Ball Z tape, but this other side has murals on it. And so if you look at all these tapes, they're all turned right now, just for display's sake, they're all turned in an orientation where the regular part of the spine is showing. But you can kind of see, I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see this up here, but there is a whole set up there that the mural is showing. And eventually, when I have the complete collection, I think a whole line around this game room of just those murals will be absolutely beautiful. And even more mind-blowing from like a childhood wet dream perspective is this thought of Dragon Ball Z VHS tape all the way around the room and then Furby on top of them. I don't know what's wrong with me to think that way, but it just gets me really excited. But Yu-Gi-Oh here on the top shelf, which I love, and honestly, this Yu-Gi-Oh section needs a bigger shelf because I've got almost all of the Yu-Gi-Oh video games. I don't have a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh VHS or DVD, but I got some. I've got several Yu-Gi-Oh Shonen Jump, which just deserve to be front-faced. They're just spines right now because there's not enough room. But there are a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh figures. Your boy Exodia back here. There's some Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I'm just in love with, the God cards on display, and probably one of my favorite PlayStation 1 games from when I was a kid. All that stuff's here on display. But there's kind of another theme here going on that you're gonna see repeated through the rest of these toy shelves, and that's like one shelf, one toy, right? Yu-Gi-Oh! The next one here is Digimon, with my favorite Digimon stuff on it. The next one is Furby. The way that we have currently been kind of limiting ourselves for collecting is just saying, let's just keep the best of the best and fill one shelf up right now. If we ever get more room and we feel so inclined, we can expand it. But right now, that's what we've been doing. We've been keeping it all on one shelf. So Yu-Gi-Oh's about to burst, and we're gonna move on in a second to Hannah's Bratz dolls, but you can kind of see that shelf filling up as well. And then you get to something like my Digimon shelf that's not super full. It's okay. It's a lot of big stuff, a lot of books and VHS, but like it has room to grow. So I don't bring home a lot of Digimon stuff. I find way more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. That's not out of desire. That's just kind of how it ends up working. Furby is something that is gonna definitely need more space because out of all the things in the game room right now that I'm the most passionate about, I don't know what it is, it's the Furby. I don't know if it's because it's just like the perfect example of early 2000s absolute insanity nonsense. I don't know if it's that or if I'm just a crazy person, but I want to bring more of these home. So that being said, we're in a constant state of flux with what we want to display and not. And all of this is 50% for our amusement and 50% this is our background. This is where we do YouTube. So we put a lot of importance on that too, but it changes. It keeps changing. But there you go, Furby collection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 early generation Furbies, 1 mini Furby, 3 of the newer generation Furbies, and then a crap ton of the McDonald's Furby, but that's nowhere near all of them. There's so many of those in existence. And then we get to something really exciting that's really difficult to display. I have some thoughts about the future, how to display them in the game room, but Pogs. I've got tubes and pages and stadiums, just Pogs, 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 Pogs. It's all right there on that shelf, and I love it, but it does not look good on the shelf. But maybe when you come back next year for the game room tour, maybe it'll look better. Also sitting here are some rubber ducks and sharks, and almost all of that stuff's from you guys, including a real life bottled shark from one of you guys. I love that stuff. There's a huge, long running story with me and rubber ducks that I've told on the channel before. Not gonna get into that on this video. Stick around for some of our live videos. Ask me on a live video about the rubber ducks and I'll tell you, but the rubber ducks are kind of why the yellow shelves happened, why it's my favorite color. I have a lot more rubber ducks than that put away in storage that people gave me over the years, well before I had this channel. It was always kind of a joke for friends to give me a Christmas birthday gift, but also include rubber ducks. If not, just give me a rubber duck. But that's what's going on there. And then again, onto the bottom of the shelf, once again, there are magazines, and that's what's going on there. Let's move on to the next toy shelf. Hannah collects Bratz, and it's really kind of an exciting thing. I never thought I could be as excited about these kinds of dolls as I am, but I am excited because Hannah knows more about these than I know about Pokemon cards. You know what I mean? Like, it was her thing back in the day, and she knows every name, every detail about them, and I find that really interesting. Also, Hannah's shelf, we've got some Pops, and those are all, I think they are all Kingdom Hearts Pops, all Kingdom Hearts games, all Kingdom Hearts figures. It's probably one of our prettier shelves, if I do say so myself, in our game room. And then we really start to get into some glorified nonsense. This starts to turn into stuff that we actively collect together. The first being McDonald's toys, most importantly the Dalmatians. We love those things, but there's just some of our other favorite generations of McDonald's toys on there. SpongeBob stuff is such a ridiculous thing to collect, but we just have, we both like SpongeBob. I would say I like it. I would say Hannah is obsessed with it, but there are some SpongeBob things that I just obsess over, like the SpongeBob watches that came in the tins back in the day. I'm sure plenty of you guys remember those. I actively search for those to add to our SpongeBob collection. I love them a lot. Xena Warrior Princess collection, one of the earlier toy sets that Hannah actually collected, and now we kind of collect together. It's just fun looking for Xena Warrior Princess stuff because it shows up in the most odd places. But also, we're getting into more uncurated stuff because we're so out of room with a couple of the things that we collect that there are a couple of Nightmare Before Christmas games down there, as well as toys, and even like a Yu-Gi-Oh! tin we just didn't have a place for, and a Bratz binder, which is going to one day house our Bratz trading card game collection, which we have most of. We just haven't put it in pages and put it up on display yet. So let's move on to the next shelf. One of my favorite things to collect, Beyblade, but it's all original. Not all original, but mostly original generation Beyblade stuff. I'm very passionate about that. Probably on the level of Pokemon, like nostalgia coming out of the nose. I love Beyblade. Monster Rancher, one of my favorite anime and video game franchises. Monster Rancher 2 was a game that I played as a kid. I mean, I played this to absolute death when I was a kid. I probably spent half my childhood on it. And then, again, as I said, these shelves start turning into random nonsense. There are things that I collect without knowing I collect them, and then just kind of realize one day I have tons of, and that's these Rubik's Cubes. 4x4 down here, and then just the cube 4 one, and then numbered ones, and then miniature ones, and there's just anytime I find a different Rubik's Cube, I bring it home and put it on that shelf. Mario / Nintendo shelf. there's a lot of Mario stuff to collect, and I don't really want to collect Mario and Nintendo stuff, but I have been keeping the more peculiar pieces that I find. Lunch boxes, books that I think are pretty old and interesting, just stuff like that. I keep stuff that is Mario / Nintendo that interests me, but if you really take a wider view at this Mario collection, you'll see it doesn't have a lot of rhyme or reason. And I walk by a lot of Mario stuff in the store, because again, I don't want to collect it all. Mario is my favorite video game. People ask me all the time, hey, what's your favorite video game? Number 1, Super Mario World. Number 2, Super Mario Maker 2. Like, I'm a simple man. I really am. So I keep the stuff there that kind of tickles that fancy. There's also some Wii controllers here, which I don't know what it is about Wii, but it very quickly, early on in this channel, turned into my favorite thing to collect, Wii stuff. So here's my Wii. I have all but the blue Wii complete in box. I do have a blue Wii, but it's just not complete in box. And I just love it. I don't know, I like the Furby, it's an obsession I really can't explain. Maybe that was because that was about the time between basically not playing video games regularly until we started this channel and got into what we're doing now. That period started with the Wii coming out. I never had one, never played it. So I like Wii now. I really like Wii. But I put my Wii remote collection on display. And honestly, that's one of the things in the game room that if you would have asked me last game room tour what you think will be better by the time the next tour comes around, I would have said my Wii remote collection. I just really wanted and still want to collect all of them and put them on display like that. Equally interesting because I have 3D printed stands for all of them, which I'm quite in love with. But there's that. It's down there with my Mario stuff. And then just kind of tucked away, something I get out and play a lot, it's my guitar stuff. And a lot of this is some custom built stuff I've made on the channel and some other, guitar amps that I found at the thrift, much like the other stuff. Now, as far as toys go, we're gonna get into maybe the most exciting stuff here. This is almost something we inadvertently collect together, because I definitely collected Power Ranger stuff on my own, but like, there's something about it that like actually makes Hannah want to organize this. And this organization job is Hannah's, because she wouldn't let me do it, because it's super awesome to her, and she loves the colorfulness, the 90s colorfulness of the Power Rangers. So we enjoy collecting this stuff together these days. And I could almost do a Power Ranger tour rather than a game room tour just on this stuff alone, because there's so many little pieces of my Power Ranger collection that I'm so hyped for, and there's almost none of it. This is kind of actually exciting for me. There's almost none of it that I have complete sets of. I would love to have the complete Power Ranger VHS collection, and I don't. I have very little of it. But just like the Dragon Ball Z collection, I would like to have all of it as well. There are these spin tops predating Beyblade that you put in a little arena and battle with, and I would also love to have that whole set, but I'm nowhere near it. And all of the figure sets, I have like most of some of them, but I do not have the entire flip head set. I do not have the entire karate action set. I don't have the entire inbox set. I don't have the entire pop set. It's still something I'm actively collecting. But once again, on this channel, all this stuff's brought home from the thrift. We've almost never just went to the store and looked for a Power Ranger pop or a Power Ranger figure. I mean, we have, don't get me wrong, there's a couple inbox figures that I found at a store that I didn't go to buy this, but I said, hey, that's really cheap, I'm gonna buy it. And this is just kind of how we keep ourselves from borderlining that obsessive collector into hoarder. We try to limit ourselves and not actively spend too much money on it. Almost everything you see here is from a Goodwill dollar bag of toys, or from a Goodwill bins where we paid for it by weight. So it's kind of difficult to explain this collection, because there's no complete sets of things, but there is tons of stuff that I've just been more than ecstatic over the years to pay minimal prices for and bring home and really appreciate looking at. But basically, just kind of nonsense up here, including one of my favorite Sega games, one of my favorite Power Ranger games, a really difficult fighting game, but fun to play. And then just kind of nonsense, but then Hannah deemed this the like mecha Power Ranger shelf. It's got all the flip heads on it and all of our inbox stuff. And then she called this cleverly our Zord shelf, and that's got all of our Megazords on it. Well, most of them. A couple of them were too tall too tall to fit, but that's all that. And then this is actually a large portion of my Game Informer collection, and then a Power Ranger cake. What do you call those, Hannah?
Cake tin?
Cake tin? Yeah. Mold? Cake mold? Yeah. Which I love. And I actually tried to sell it at one point, and then had a nightmare. Woke up in the middle of the night and thought that it actually sold in one of the antique malls where we do a lot of our reselling. And I went, see, look, I'm not kidding you. This has its price on it. Thankfully, I priced it high enough that I put $25 on it. Thankfully, I put a high enough price on it. Nobody wanted it. But I'm so glad I kept it. It's just such a ridiculous piece. And if you collect Power Ranger stuff, now it's not going to go back the way I had it. If you collect Power Ranger stuff, you need one of these. Isn't that a rule? All right, let's move on to the last shelf. Another exciting one. We have a second channel where we do trading card stuff and play video games. That channel will be in this video's description. Go down there, click on that link and check it out. But as soon as we started that channel, we started collecting Pokemon stuff together to kind of use as a backdrop to shoot stuff in front of, but also just to kind of keep some of the stuff we really like. And a lot of it's plushie stuff that just some of these plushies that if you were going to go to GameStop and buy this right now, I forget how much they are, but like $20-something, And I love having this. I love this thing, but I would not personally, just how I am, I would not go to GameStop and pay $20 for this. But I found this. Hannah, do you remember how much we paid for this?
Tags on the back.
She says the tag's on the back. And it is. $249 we paid for that bad boy. I'll totally pay $249 for that all day of the week. So that's kind of what's going on with the plushies. I like collecting Pokemon plushies, but I don't try too hard. Now the stuff that I will and probably have paid out just a couple times for happens on the rest of these shelves. Anytime there's a bag full of McDonald's or whatever toys at a Goodwill for a set price, I'll pay whatever they're asking to get some of these Pokemon keychains. I really will. And so the keychains and all the Burger King stuff, and there's not the entire set, but most of the set of the gold-plated stuff from Burger King. I'm obsessed with that stuff. And then everything else is kind of like the Pokemon stuff that I'm nostalgic for because I had it. Like the Pokedex, one of my favorite things in this collection, this Pokemon collection by far. I had this as a kid. I walked around with it in my pocket, along with this specific Burger King ball on my belt loop with a hat on, with the symbol on Ash's hat drawn in, acting like I was Ash Ketchum. So a lot of this stuff is just nostalgic based. Like also, this Charmander book, I had all these Pokemon books when I was a kid, so this stays on display, but this also has all my Charizards in it. So there's that, and I love it. I love this stuff. This stuff gets me giddy every time I walk in the door to this room and it's all sitting here. It makes me very happy. But the last little bit of stuff, of course, is kind of back over here. Some of the bigger Power Ranger stuff that's never going to fit on the shelves. You can see 3 little Power Ranger plushies packed in this shelf. They come in all different sizes and shapes. These are the little guys. He's the big version of the same thing. Then there's there's a slightly bigger version of the red one, of all of them that's like this red one that has hard plastic heads. And I tried collecting all of them for a while and I just gave up. And so what I'm really gonna do is probably sell that off and just keep trying to find the rest of these little guys. But the big one's here for now and he's tucked way up top, along with my remote control Dragon Zord and its remote, which is one of the hardest things to find in the world. The best pop I've ever seen in my life, Dino Ultra Zord. Probably the most beautiful puzzle you'll ever see. Holographic Megazord. Very proud of that. And then some more rubber ducks over here. And again, long story of the rubber ducks, but there's lots of rubber ducks all along this room. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for checking out this game room tour. Hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on so at the very least, a year from now, you can come back and check out our next game room tour and see how much this room changes, see if we finally reached one of our loftier goals of moving into a bigger space and doing this much, much bigger, twice as tall, 10 times as big around. We really want to do that one day. So if you subscribe and turn those notifications on, you might get that notification whenever we post that video a year from now. But also, you would have the added benefit of having a notification for the next 365 videos before that one's posted. I had to do the math, like, do I take one off or leave it? But we post videos every day. Every single day on this channel. We have not missed a beat since that last game room tour. Actually, since 4 or 5 months before that last game room tour, we have not missed a beat posting videos every day. So we'd love to have you here for our next year of videos. We're going to be doing lots of traveling, hopefully traveling around the country to bring stuff back to this very game room and put it on display. COVID willing, that's what we want to do. We want to get on the road, but everything's got to kind of line up for that to happen. And the biggest excitement for me, one of the biggest excitements for me for traveling, besides just seeing the world with my girlfriend Hannah, is for us to bring cool gyms back to put in this game room so we can do this all again next year. And until next year, guys, peace out.